Another crazy thing about the Kenya Nairobi mission is that in Kenya you have 42 different tribes, and in Tanzania you have over 100 tribes with all of their own distinct languages and distinct cultures and traditions. Especially as you go from Kenya to Tanzania, you'll find there's a big difference between the people. Between Swahili itself, Swahili is very different in Kenya than it is in Tanzania. In Tanzania it's more of a deep Swahili. It's more of the original stuff, whereas in Kenya they mix it with English and with their own tribal languages. So it's more pure in Tanzania. But the culture is quite a bit different as well. In Kenya, the culture is very tribal. They're very proud of their tribe. They love their tribe. You have the Kikuyu tribe, you have the Kamba tribe, you have the Kalenjin tribe, and then, like I said, 40 other tribes. And all of them kind of have their little differences. They have different food. But generally in Kenya, what you're going to see, like food-wise, and it's still part of their culture, is ugali, which is corn flour mixed with water, cooked over a jiko, which is a charcoal stove. And that's kind of the substance of the meal. And then they eat it with sukuma wiki, which is, here we know it as like collard greens or kale. There they use that, and that's their main food, especially in Kenya, is ugali and sukuma wiki. And in general, people in East Africa, especially in Tanzania, are very welcoming. Tanzanians, they pride themselves in being a very welcoming, kind people. And so you go to someone's house around lunchtime, around dinner time, and they're going to want to feed you. If they've got food cooking, they want you to stay. They want you to be able to enjoy their food. And it's very rude to deny their food, to reject them. They get very upset, actually, if you were to say no, I'm full, or I don't want it. They get very offended by that, because they love to give, and even though they don't have very much themselves, they want to make sure that you have been given something. And it's actually a custom that if someone enters your home, you have to give them something. So if they don't give you food, they're at least going to give you a soda or water, and they have to give you something. It's just part of the culture. And so, as a missionary, that's kind of a nice thing, because, there's good food that you get and good soda and stuff like that. And I guess, the food could be hard for some people who aren't used to that kind of food, I guess, or that kind of cooking conditions or cleanliness. But like I said, it's very rude to reject them. And so I knew of missionaries who didn't eat any of the food that they were given, but they also weren't very liked by the people, because they felt like they didn't love them because they weren't accepting their food. And so, you need to be smart. Don't go around and just eat anything they put in front of you. If it looks questionable, then you should question it. But also don't be so, I can't eat this. Like, I've never tried this before, I'm never going to touch it. You have to be humble and be willing to understand their point of view, that they want you to be able to indulge in their culture the way that you would expect them to indulge in your culture if they were to come here in the United States. And so the food will be different, obviously. The water doesn't taste as good as you would maybe like it to. But like I said, if someone welcomes you in their home, they're going to want to give you something. So that's kind of a very big cultural taboo, is to say no. It's very important that you do take those things. And then, like I said, in Kenya, life's a little bit more, I don't want to say westernized, but a little bit more fast-paced. People like to get around and do things, but yet they're always late to things, which is kind of weird to me. It's kind of a paradox to me. But in Tanzania, people are very respectful, and the children are very respectful, love to see you. In Kenya, when kids see you, they're just going to follow you around everywhere, and they're going to yell Mzungu, which means white person. And there's only a couple things in English that kids in Kenya know, and that's "How are you?" and "I'm fine." And they'll chant it as you walk past. "How are you? How are you? How are you?" And they don't even care if you respond. They just like to chant it to white people. So that's something that you're definitely going to want to get used to. But also, there's a lot of poverty. You're going to see a lot of poor kids, street kids. Especially in Kenya, there's what they call chokaras, which is a street child basically who's grown up on the street, has no family, and they sit around in the streets begging. And a lot of times they have a little plastic bottle that they fill with glue, and they huff it. So they're high most of the time, and they're always going to be begging you for money, and will pickpocket if needs be. And so that's kind of a hard thing to adjust to, coming from wherever you're from. You know, if it's from Utah, if it's from California, or from New York, or from anywhere, it's a different culture. There's a lot of poor people. There's a lot of people with disabilities, physically, missing legs, missing arms, begging on the streets. And so it's kind of something that you have to realize you can't save everyone money-wise, especially as a missionary. You're actually, there's a rule that you're not supposed to give money. And so, you know, be wise in what you do. Make sure that you understand that there's a lot of people, and if you give to one, then they're all going to come to you, and it could be actually dangerous because they might think you have money and try to take it forcefully. So, but it's just, you know, it's just getting used to the culture, getting used to the people, getting used to the way things are done in East Africa.
Kenyans, they're still nice, but when you compare them to the Tanzanians, they kind of are viewed as mean. But I just think oftentimes they're more honest, which is, you know, a good thing, but also they come off a little bit more rash, or so that you'll get used to that. And as far as like talking to Americans or Europeans, they're still very nice. They're just not Tanzanian nice. So very kind people, a little more harsh than the Tanzanians, but tribalism is very much a part of Kenyan culture. I've mentioned a few times there's 42 tribes, and if you ask a Kenyan, like, who are you? They'll say usually their name, and they'll be like, and I'm, you know, their tribe. They always, or oftentimes will say, and I'm Kikuyu, I'm Luya, I'm all these things, because it's very much a part of their identity and so forth. A lot of the time they will only marry people within their tribe or like cousin tribes, and they won't marry like across, like, because there are like tribes that are in conflict with each other, especially politically. And so that's why in the election times in Kenya's history, especially most recent history, there's been some conflict and some violence regarding the elections. But as a missionary, you don't have to worry too much about it. They make sure that you stay indoors during those days and stuff. So I know that Africa has like this stereotypical dangerous part of the world. I think you're fine. My mom cried when she heard that I was going to Kenya and Tanzania. I rejoiced. I actually wanted, my cousin served in Uganda, and I always wanted to go to Uganda, but I got to go right next door, which I am so happy. I love my mission. And so you'll be fine. You know, be smart, but you're going to be fine. But back to Kenyan people, they know they're very tribalistic, but they're very kind and very honest. Like Tanzanians, they are so nice that they will often tell you that they're going to be there. But I think this is common in every mission, regardless of where you are. People promise that they're going to do things, but they don't. And so you just have to get used to that. Also, for both African nations, there is no rush or like hurry in Kenya or in Tanzania. In fact, they have a saying that's haraka haraka aina baraka, which means hurrying brings no blessings. And so like you will set appointments, and just know that if you set it for 1 o'clock, that means that in their mind it's any time after 1. So it could be between 1 and 5, I don't know. So you just have to help the people understand what you mean by 1 o'clock. So I would jokingly say 1 o'clock Mzungu time, which is like white man time, and then they will laugh. And the thing is that like in America, we have like this conflict of race and other things. You should never be disrespectful or like make racist jokes, but you're white and they are not, and they know it. In fact, the little kids will come up to you and they just chant Mzungu, Mzungu, which means white person, white person, white person. And it's just something, it gets annoying, but you get used to it. and they don't really care about race. So it's not like, I don't know, you don't have this big conflict regarding those things. And you soon, if you're a white missionary, you soon forget that you're white unless the little kids are chanting, and I don't know, you see yourself just as a Kenyan after a while, or a Tanzanian. Kenyans also, I mentioned this earlier, but they're hardworking if they have a job, but a lot of the time they don't. And so you'll see oftentimes men especially like just sitting around or trying to find work or just chatting with friends and other things, which can be discouraging for them. But my advice, some people get mad or they are quick to judge these people that seem to be just being lazy. But if you didn't have a job, what would you do with your day? I mean, it's tough. These people are willing to work. There has, because of some poorly planned like humanitarian aid, there's been kind of a tradition of reliance, which is not really their fault as well. But the people are good. They're hardworking. Just some traditions possibly need to be changed or altered within. It's not really a Kenyan tradition. It's more just like recent traditions of reliance. But you'll see those and you'll understand what I mean when you get there. It's kind of hard to explain. Kenyans are great though. They're funny. They ride bikes everywhere in addition to like riding matatus and other things. And they stack everything. And same with Tanzanians. They'll stack, you know, pieces of wood like 10 feet high on their bike and just be pedaling around. And as missionaries, a lot of the time you'll have like competitions of who can get the best or funniest picture of something being put on back of a bike. So you'll see goats or entire families just all on one bike, and it's pretty funny.